Something that is true for all of us, no matter who you are, how old you are, uh, what's going on in your life, something that is true for all of us is that life happens. And when life happens, we start to get bogged down with the things of life. But regardless, and God knows that we'll get bogged down with the things of life, but regardless, something I hope for myself and for you, and actually a goal I have for our church family, is that we would have during the week regular time in God's Word. Now, as a church, we try to help provide for that by having a daily Bible reading. And it's included weekly on our blog. It's included at the church in a fivefold pamphlet to each day somehow be in God's Word. So that's really important as life happens. And we know that life is going to happen. A goal we have as a church is to encourage one another to daily, regularly be in God's Word. But what do I do when I get into God's Word? That's an important question. What do I do once I get into it? It's not simply a matter of just reading it and going about your day and checking it off a list that, well, I had my daily time in God's Word. No, there's something I need to be doing with that daily reading. And I'm going to suggest to you that there's 4 things to do with your daily reading. So get ready to write these down. Number 1, before you read, ask God to open your eyes to behold the wonder of His Word. And that's just very biblical to ask. A way we can put it from last Sunday is ask God to open your mind, open your understanding to God's Word. So do that first. Before you get ready to read, ask God, help me to understand what is right here in your Word. And then as you read, maybe after you read, you want to go back and read again and ask this question: what do I notice? And here you're just looking for the facts. This is something no one can argue with. What are the facts of the passage? What do you see? What do you notice? And sometimes you're asking questions like who, what, where, when, why, how. And so you're noticing the facts, you're making observations, you're considering the context, which is the verses before and after any passage you're reading, and you're just trying to gather information. Number 2, the next question to ask is this. I should say number 3. Number 3, the question is ask this: what does this mean? What does the passage mean? So the first thing you do before you read, God, help me to understand. After you read, and even as you're reading, you're asking this question: what do I notice? Third, what does this mean? After I look at all the facts, and I'm observing the facts, trying to gather all my information, how can I put what the passage means in one sentence? How can I sum up this passage in one sentence as to what it means? And then the very last thing to do, this is number 4, is to simply ask, okay, what does this mean for me? So I'm taking what the passage means. I'm looking at that one sentence. I'm trying to sum up the passage in a big idea, and then I'm asking myself, how can I take what the passage means and apply it to my life? Now, how does this apply to a fighter verse or as a fighter verse this week? Well, it's Psalm 119, verse 11. And listen to what the psalmist says. I have stored up your word in my heart that I might not sin against you. So see what the psalmist is doing? Taking God's word, and I guarantee you, doing the same thing I'm asking you to do as you read, asking God, help me to understand. What do I notice? What does this mean? How can I apply it to my life? And the psalmist is saying, I'm going to take God's word, store it up in my heart, so I won't in turn sin against Him. And the psalmist is doing those things. I want to know what God's word means, and I want to apply it to my life for this reason, so I won't sin against Him.